Good afternoon. I'm Sandra Serini Elzer, liaison to the League of Women Voters of Michigan's statewide environmental network. Many thanks to Donna Mullins, Ellen Link, and Elaine Fishoff of the Lansing League for organizing this presentation with Senator Singh. Since this is a public presentation, I want to remind everyone that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. The League works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, such as protecting our natural resources and the urgent need to address climate change. The League also works to influence public policy through education and advocacy and support measures that will promote renewable energy, regulate pollution at its source, and conserve our energy resources, all in a fair and equitable manner. So to further our education goal, I'm very pleased that Michigan State Senator Sam Singh has agreed to speak with us about legislation pending in the Michigan State Senate that will address climate change and protect our environment. Senator Singh is the first Indian American elected to the Michigan Senate, where he serves as a majority floor leader. The senator is a graduate of Michigan State University and lives in East Lansing with his wife, Carrie, and their son, Remy. So with that, I'm happy to turn the program over to Senator Singh.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here today. I'm going to spend a little time talking about what the Senate calls their Clean Energy Future plan. In April of this year, the Michigan Senate introduced a series of bills to deal with climate change. Those bills were given a hearing in June, and we spent the summer working on that legislation, and we're working all the way through every day since we've been back into session. What ended up happening was that we were able to sort of hone down onto a handful of the bills that were introduced in that package. And that's what I'm going to spend my time talking to you about. If we have some extra time, I can mention some of the other bills that were in the package that still are what I would consider in phase two. So we are looking at three specific climate bills right now in the Energy and Environment Committee. The first one is Senate Bill 271. It was introduced by Senator Erica Geis from Taylor. And the premise of that bill is to move Michigan towards 100% clean energy by a date certain. The versions that we are looking at right now include a substantial increase in direct renewable sources like wind and solar. It also has a target for battery storage as we expand that technology. But we also look at other things that might be carbon-free or considered renewable because of its type of source. And so that does include some items that would fall under the category of biomass. It also includes nuclear. And so what it does is allows for a fairly robust energy plan that obviously is low carbon and moving towards being carbon free specifically. But at the same time, it focuses on reliability and ensuring that we can meet all of the needs of the energy demands of our state. Because we're a cold weather state, there are some days, even with the best of technology and the best of renewables, that renewable energy is not the only source that we would need to make sure that everything was moving forward and moving correctly. And so we are, very careful as we take a look at legislation not to legislate things that don't have the right modeling and can't be achieved in a practical and pragmatic way. And so that bill, as I mentioned, also includes a few other items. It looking at distributive generation. It also looks at community solar. and the version that we have right now, really looks to make sure that we can hit our goals, but in some situations where we can't. As you know, in Michigan, we're not alone. We are all part of a federal and national system on energy that also then has regional breakouts. There's a group called MISO that works with a series of Midwest states going down south, that we share energy back and forth with one another. So it helps balance the grid and our activities. So sometimes activities could happen in other states or could happen at MISO, and we need to make sure that we have a public service commission that has the flexibility in case something that we don't know might happen, somewhere down the road. We're excited that coal has continued to be removed from the state. Consumer Energy had moved their coal plant closures up significantly to the mid part of this decade. Even DTE over the summer agreed to a settlement that would move the closing date of their last two coal plants from 2035 to 2032. And I think we're making some really significant progress and really pleased with where we're going. And so that is the first bill. There's a second bill. It's called Senate Bill 502. It's introduced by Senator Singh, who's from Washtenaw County. And what this bill does is it gives the Public Service Commission, the group that oversees and regulates our incumbent utilities, it gives them the ability to ensure when they're doing their proceedings that they take into account issues such as climate, issues such as health, issues dealing with equity. I've always felt that the commission had enough leeway within the law to allow for them some of those provisions. The commission lawyers have thought otherwise, and I think legislation like this would really provide an opportunity to ensure that voices that we believe should always be at that table will continue to be at that table. And so that is the second bill in the package. The third bill is dealing with, it's a Senate Bill 273. It's a bill that I've introduced personally, and this is about energy waste reduction. And basically, energy waste reduction is energy efficiency. And as everyone knows, the least costly energy is the energy you don't use. And so we've got over the last decade, based on previous laws, we've had a really robust energy efficiency program. We've got some of the top numbers for energy efficiency, but we believe this legislation will actually move that forward and continue that pace, but at a little bit more aggressive level. Currently, right now, utilities are looking at 1% towards energy waste reduction. Now our bill looks at requiring that to be at 1.5%, but that there's a goal of 2%. And so when the companies like a Consumers Energy goes in front of the Public Service Commission, they have to sort of try to make 2%. If they can't, they have to show why they can't meet that standard, and then the commission will take a look at that. We also have a slight increase for natural gas efficiency in homes. Probably the best piece of this legislation is it also allows for a broader use of activities. So in the past, items like heat pumps, building envelope changes were not allowed under the energy waste reduction program, and here it will. And so we are excited that we're moving into some newer territory for that. As many people know, in the state, we have co-ops and municipal electric systems as well. All of those are not subject to oversight by the Public Service Commission. They have their own boards and their own entities that have created them. And so we do require those entities to also participate in an energy waste reduction program. If they decide not to, they have to pay into a statewide fund that their customers could access. And so, we continue to want to make sure that every resident of the state has access to energy waste reduction services. A number of years ago, the earliest, and easiest things was to sort of shift out people's light bulbs and lighting and so forth. Obviously, now I think we've been moving towards much more energy efficient appliances. But I really think this next phase is the parts that are going to be harder, but probably very much meaningful as we sort of take a look at other areas for us to focus in on. So those are the three bills. They've been in the Energy and Environment Committee in the Senate. Last week, Senator Geist and myself gave an update on 271 and 273. This week in committee, Senator Singh spoke about her bill, and then we had close to 4 hours of testimony from a variety of different organizations and groups. And so I'm going to stop there and just acknowledge that those are the three guiding pieces for the clean energy program. I do want to acknowledge two other concepts before we sort of open it up for questions, and then I can potentially go into some other topics if we have time. The other topic is we have created a bill that's not in the Energy Committee, but it's in the Labor Committee. It's the creation of a Just Transition Office. And this office would be placed in the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. We call that LEO. That's the department that looks at workforce development programs and a variety of different other programs. Our labor programs are in there, MIOSHA and health safety, those inspections that we do at facilities, those all sort of come out of LEO. And so this Just Transition Office is meant to do two things. One is take a look at workers that might be impacted by the transition. So as one can imagine, a coal plant is a fairly large and worker intensive place. And as you decommission those and you move towards a variety of different types of energy sources that are lower volume of employees, we want to make sure that we're helping those employees find jobs. Now, the great thing that's happening at the same time as we've been getting out of coal is that we've had an explosion in clean energy jobs here in the state of Michigan. We've had right now a report that had just come out in the summer has shown that Michigan is the leader in the Midwest for clean energy jobs. And so that is one element of this Just Transition Office. It looks at both those people that are going through transitions in the energy sector, but also the automobile sector. As we move away from combustion engines to electric vehicles, there will also be an impact on the number of workers that might be at plants. And so that is also will be a purview of the office. And they will look at things like workforce development programs, making sure that we can get people training and potentially resources while they're training. I know we've worked with the utilities as they made some of their transition plans in the past, but maybe closely working with some of the plants as they need to retool and bring in different types of manufacturing into the state. So we'll be looking at that. And then the second broad component that this office does is it works with communities. So first component, working with the workers. Second is communities. There are oftentimes that people are, a coal plant, for example, is a very property intensive use. And so it brings in a lot of property taxes to a local community. Once you decommission that, there's obviously a significant loss of revenue. And what we want to be able to do is work with local governments to help them smooth that transition. And that office at Leo would also work with the Department of Treasury and others to take a look at what might be out there. And so just wanting to let you know that that is a fourth bill, though not directly related to sort of climate, but is I think a very important part of the puzzle to making sure as we make this transition that no worker or no community is left behind. And then the last piece is an item that's not happening in the Senate, but is starting in the House, is around siting and how to find the right level of siting, whether that's at the local level, working with local governments, or at the state level, working with the Public Service Commission. And so I know that there's a number of House members that are working on that legislation. My understanding is that they might introduce it as early as next week and potentially start hearings on that. And so we will obviously deal with it from the Senate perspective when it comes to us. We're working on these other four bills for the moment. And that other set of bills for siting is going to be a very important part of the puzzle. So let me formally stop there with the presentation about what our bills are doing and kind of turn it back over to Sandra.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Senator. We've got a few questions in the chat, and we have others as well, but let's start with the first one. This is from John Saver. Will local governments, nonprofits, and private developers be able to do community solar projects with this new legislation?
In the legislation, in the draft that we have in the Senate, we have created a pilot program for community solar that allows for third parties to do a community solar program if they are accessing the resources for a program called Solar for All. There's a national program called Solar for All. The state is, I think, has already applied anywhere in the range of $350 million to $400 million to access that money. Some of that money will go to rooftop solar in low-income communities, but some of it is eligible for community solar. We wanted to ensure that there could be both third party as well as utilities have always been able to do community solar programs, so they haven't done any significant level of that here in our state. And so the pilot program, I believe, is sort of where I can get the members where I think I can get 20 votes at this point in time. And so I know John and others probably want a more robust community solar program. There are bills that have been introduced in both chambers that address that issue. My hope is that we'll continue to work on those bills as sort of a next phase of this conversation. So for those that want to see something broader than what is in the pilot program, I think we'll still continue to work on those community solar bills. I will also say, though, the pilot program is still a tough haul to get over the finish line. I just always like to be transparent with people that as I take a look at issues and concerns that are popping up, the community solar piece is a component that we're just trying to find the right landing space on. We have a window of time to get the 100% sort of clean energy bill done and the changes to the commission. And so, we're just trying to manage all of those pieces all at one time. And so we'll continue to work on it. But as I mentioned, the program that's in the Senate bills right now is the pilot program that I think people have had a chance to see now for at least one draft, if not two drafts of the Senate versions. So.
Okay. The next question is from Rick Freeman. Would it be possible for the Public Service Commission to regulate the solar cap if the 1% statutory cap installed back in 2008 is removed from Michigan law? So it sounds like,
So,
go ahead.
yep. So we do have in the Senate version again here a change to the distributive generation cap. We do it on a sales approach, which would be, I think, in our bill is at 5%. For those of you who sort of follow this issue, if you were thinking of the cap as a number that is most likely used, that's probably closer to 15%. Again, there's separate legislation on this issue. I'm trying to see if I can, push the boundaries and try to get that at least not necessarily resolved for the long term, but at least resolved for the short term. Again, that's in the bill. I know that will be a tension point as we continue, but I'm committed to trying to remove the cap eventually, but maybe in the short term, maybe it's just raising the cap. And so, I sort of believe that we need to do that. But I'm trying to, again, I've got this delicate approach, as has been made clear to me by my Republican colleagues, that they don't believe in getting mandates for clean energy. They don't believe in mandates for energy waste reduction. Some of them don't even believe in climate change as an issue. And so because of that, I would have hoped this would have been bipartisan in nature. But at this moment in time, it's been made clear to me by my Republican colleagues that it's most likely will have to be something that will be passed by the Democrats only. And so right now in the Senate, we have 20 uh, Democrats. Obviously, in the House, it's 56, if that's the same, perspective that House Republicans have. And so that means only one member of the Democratic caucus on any one issue can walk away, and we won't be able to pass these bills. And so I'm trying to find the right landing spot so we get to 20 votes to be able to move something out of the chamber. And so, but yes, the DG cap is something we're trying to work on.
Okay, thank you so much, Senator. And just a reminder to everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We have a couple more here. I think you might have already answered this one. This is from Karen Schmidt. How can the bipartisan community solar bills, SB 152 and 153, get up for a vote?
I believe that that's sort of the next phase of conversations is around, those bills as their own. Obviously, because I don't believe I have at this moment in time, enough votes to do a full community solar. Might not even have enough votes to do a pilot program at this point. But knowing that it is going to be something that would probably need to have the bipartisan nature, these bills, at least both in the House and Senate, have bipartisan support. I think, for the couple people that we might lose on the Democratic side, I think there's probably enough Republicans. And so, my sense is that this is a conversation that we should continue to have going into next year. And, obviously I'm a supporter of seeing that level of expansion. I think the commitment, knowing the timeline of where things are at this moment, is that, the three bills that I've mentioned, as well as the just transition, are the focus of the immediate pace, but other environmental bills, other bills that were in the climate package, including one that I've been working on for clean fuels, creating a clean fuel standard. All of those are sort of in what I would call a phase two at this point in time. So,
okay. Well, thank you. Next question is from Elizabeth Kaufman. Is Michigan geographically a good bet for encouraging the widespread installation of heat pumps for heating and cooling?
One of the items that we do in the energy waste reduction bill, that was that Senate Bill 273 that I mentioned, one of the things that, does allow for the work of energy waste reduction is the expansion of heat pumps, especially cold weather heat pumps. Obviously, in different geographic areas, it is, you'll get sometimes go a little bit further with heat pumps, but there are I think great technologies that are available now that can have a significant impact in sort of getting people off of kind of the traditional fossil fuel side of things. And so I think we're headed in the right direction. Once one of the reasons I wanted to ensure that we didn't have any restrictions on the expansion of heat pumps in the work that we're doing.
Great, thank you so much. A couple more questions here. Calvin Carter, with all of the BIL and IRA monies coming into the state, more folks are looking for ways to be involved. Is there an office or a resource folks can tap for technical assistance?
The governor has created an infrastructure office, slipping on what they are calling it these days. But if somebody wants to reach out to my office, we can make sure that people are connected to that. I know they are looking at all of the federal legislation and seeing where we can, as a state, leverage as much money and resources as possible. So I don't know if there is technical assistance at this point being provided by agencies, whether it's Eagle or others, on how to access some of those dollars and resources, but it would seem to be a very appropriate function, both for that infrastructure office as well as for, the climate office that's located in Eagle. So I do feel like there are opportunities for that. I'm not as well versed on how to connect and contact that, but if you reach out to my office, we'll be able to kind of connect with people.
Okay. Another question from Karen Schmidt. Do the Senate bills 271, 502, and 273 allow for virtual net metering?
No, they don't. Again, I think, pushed the pilot program to allow the commission to sort of take a look at the community solar side of things. And the DG distributive generation language utilizes the existing framework that the commission has provided for on that for rooftop solar and other types of pieces.
Great. And then a couple more questions I have here. There's a couple of questions about the Lansing Board of Water and Light. Do you know what their position is on the three bills, the 271, 273, and 502?
I have been told that there are some concerns. I don't know what they are directly. I think my staff might have received something this week. I was surprised how long it took for them to reach out, to be honest. I had actually heard from IBEW, which is the electrical workers, the union who sits within BWL. I actually was told some of the concerns from them, which I appreciated the heads up, but I would have thought, we would have got a little bit more formal. I've been meeting with organizations all summer, all fall here, and I think 75 plus meetings, and we've been meeting with the municipal association that represents all of the municipal utilities like BWL, but hadn't seen something directly, other than I had heard some concerns this week and that we were getting some language. So we'll sort of see where things go. I think, I've been pleased to see BWL making some changes in the way they think about some areas in energy. I think there's obviously a good group of people here, obviously from the mid-Michigan area, but there's a program called MEAP, which is the Michigan Energy Assistance Program. And I don't understand, I've never understood why the Board of Water and Light dragged its feet to be part of this program. This program basically puts funding together that allows low-income people or people who fall under hardship the ability to access resources to help them pay their utility bills. Obviously, a number of all the big utilities are part of that, and municipal utilities, were sort of given a choice. And I know for many years we were pushing for them to do that. Pleased that they this year is the first year that they've signed up for the program. Also, I'm hearing, though I need to probably do some follow-up, there's a concept called on-bill financing that allows municipal utilities to do some broader-based energy efficiency things for their customers and put that to the bill of the customers to pay off for a longer period of time, allows for a little bit more extensive use. That's being used by Holland and I think Traverse City at this point in time, and we're not seeing the usage of that by BWL. My hope is that that might be changing in the future. They've obviously done a good job of seeing expansion of renewables. Obviously, they're at a higher rate than a lot of other governments, and so they're, I think, doing an overall good job on all these pieces, but still a lot of work to be done. And so looking forward to hearing if there's significant concerns that we need to work on, and we'll pleased to do that.
Thank you, Senator. There's a couple questions that don't have to do with the climate bills, but before we switch over to non-climate bill questions, I would just personally like to get your thought on whether we're going to see these key bills, the 271, the 502, and the 273, plus the Just Transition Office. If you think we're going to get those out of committee in the next week or two and then voted on before the end of October.
Oh, yeah. I believe that the House will get those bills from the Senate in early October, and with enough time for them to look at it. I think the good thing is we are addressing a lot of the key and more complex issues and addressing them in this chamber. So my hope is that there's not a lot of unanswered questions when it gets to the House. So it still allows them to put their spin on what those bills will look like, but the complex issues, hopefully have been resolved. Now, I've been meeting with the three main sponsors of the House versions of those climate bills. They're Representative Pahutsky, Representative Abe Ayash, and Representative Betsy Kofia. I've been meeting with them twice a week, had a meeting with them today, since all throughout the summer and here into the fall. So, as we're making changes in our versions of the bills, we're trying to make sure that aligns with where they think their caucus will go in the House. So my hope is once they get those bills, they'll have the ability to do committee, but hopefully there won't be a lot of a huge amount of amendments. I'm sure there'll be, a number, but not things that would mean kind of complete rewriting of legislation and things like that. So, my hope and is that all of this is resolved by both of our chambers on these four issues, along with the citing bill, all by the end of October. And then I just want to acknowledge that Representative Jasper Martis from the Genesee County area has been working with me on the Just Transition Office as a House member. So,
okay, great. And then just one more thing before we slip over to other environmental issues. Is it the 100% clean energy by 2040 or 2035?
It's 2040. The latest drafts are at 2040. I think many people know we started at 2035, knowing that that was a very aggressive starting point. 2040 is sort of where most states are moving their clean energy programs to. Also, when you look at the modeling on how one would get there, 2040 is really the place where when I've talked to the Public Service Commission, where there feels to be a lot more comfort. I think many people probably followed Minnesota was the last state to do 100% climate clean energy goal. They did that in February of this year. They're at 2040. So yeah, 2040 is where we're landing up at. And I always thought we would get there when we introduced the bills at 2035, but I wanted to make sure that we started aggressive, looked at the modeling, and then found the right landing place. And I think 2040 is the right and appropriate place.
Okay. All right, so then let's get to this question from Rena Bash. Another climate change issue that needs attention is drinking water. She's citing a recent New York Times article discussed about how in the US, we have dangerously depleted aquifers. In the past few months, we've learned about a gravel mine in Washtenaw County that has been dewatering a local aquifer so much that residents' wells are drying up. And then we have that issue with the dioxin plume in the groundwater of Ann Arbor and the Flint water crisis, and private companies like Nestle bottling water. It's obvious we need a stronger protection for water. What do you think is the best way to move forward on protecting groundwater in Michigan?
I know we have, made significant investments sort of in the budget to sort of deal with groundwater protection, making sure that we are once again staffing departments at better levels than we've had in the past. Obviously we've put a significant amount of dollars and resources sort of in lead pipe removal in some key communities, but also then providing resources and pulling down federal dollars that would allow all communities to move towards that. I know that there's been some legislation introduced. I've not been focused on that yet, so I don't remember all the details. Obviously, I've been focused on the climate bills that we've been talking about, but I know water is an important issue for us. We address some of the financial sides of things, but I do know that we will be looking at a variety of issues as we kind of move forward. Water and protection of water will continue to be one of those. We're going to take a look at issues like polluter pay. So there will be other, I think, opportunities to sort of address the issue of water. I do see another kind of question in the webinar chat that deals with water, which is what about the septic legislation? I introduced legislation in the Senate to deal with creating a statewide septic code. I did that in partnership with Representative Phil Skaggs from Kent County. Representative Skaggs has been doing a great job of working with stakeholders, bringing people together to take a look at the septic code. This is an issue that has been worked on for a variety of sessions. No one's been able to land the plane on it yet. And what we have right now, unfortunately, is estimates that up to close to 25% of septic tanks could be failing at some type of level and then seeping contaminants into the ground, or in some instances directly into lakes and streams. And so to me, having a strong septic system code is necessary. We're the only state in the nation that doesn't have it. Right now, we're taking a look at regular inspections that would be done on the local level, and making sure that we create the staffing requirements that would be necessary to run a program like this on the local level. But we have to get to a point where we are fixing septic systems. We did, again, on the money side, we did put some resources into in previous budgets, including the budget I was involved in, but also I think in budgets before I was elected and started serving in January, where those that might have financial burdens in getting a septic tank replaced and so forth, that there's resources to do that. I do think with any kind of inspection program, we should try to also have a program that works with those that are in low income categories to sort of see how they can pull some of those pieces together, because obviously getting a new septic system or repairing a septic system is a fairly expensive endeavor. But that shouldn't stop us from creating a statewide code. Again, I think that'll be another phase 2 item, even though I've been working on, I think, that legislation longer than the legislation on climate. It'll be, I think, an issue that we'll hopefully get to next year.
Great. Well, if you have time for a couple more, there are some more questions in the chat. One of them is, what is the plan to get legislation passed if the 2 Democratic representatives get elected as mayors?
So there are 2 members, of the House that are running for mayor in their prospective communities. I think that's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier. I'd like to see these bills sort of done and voted on by the end of October, so we don't have to deal with that issue of since it feels like I'm not getting Republican support for these climate bills, and so we're going to continue to work down that path. I'm obviously always open on what might be able to bring forward Republican support if there is something to be had. But at this point, like I said, it doesn't seem like there's a way to make it bipartisan in nature. So, but I think that's the plan, is to get it done before that option's there. Now, it's very possible that one of them gets elected, one doesn't, or maybe neither one of them get elected, right? So I know a lot of people are spending a lot of time, and I get the sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but I think we have in our culture, right? The speculation of what might happen, right? So I know a lot of people have been focused on that and what that might mean. Obviously there will be special elections. Both of those communities are fairly Democratic in nature, and so I don't think it will change anything in the makeup. It just would mean for the House that they would be at a 54-54 split for a period of months while there's special elections for a primary and a general election. And so, but we'll have to just wait and see if that's actually an issue or not.
Okay, great. Okay, a couple more here. In the bills, the bills you're trying to get passed in October, is there a date after which utilities, both investor-owned and municipal, will be prohibited from building additional gas plants?
Obviously in the IRP process, movement towards other clean energy processes is what is going to be the driving force. But we also do know that there are potential exceptions that MISO might make, and other issues around reliability that might happen that would require potentially a natural gas plant to be built. So one of the things that we do is we give some tools to the commission on how they could take a look at that. If there is a point where it does feel like we have to go in that direction, one, because we're being forced to by kind of federal guidelines or by MISO guidelines, then it does require a carbon capture of at least 95%. Now, I get that it doesn't mean it's at 100, but it is to utilize the technology that is available at that point in time. I think what we'll see as well is that I think natural gas, the intent would not be to have the natural gas on all of the time as well as we go into the future, that sometimes those might be peaker situations that would allow for, issues around adequacy and reliability and so forth. And so the commission does have some prerogative in there, but obviously the intent of the bills, the incentives in the bills are all to be towards other clean energy um, uh, systems.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And I think that's the thrust of this question from Donna Brown. There's basically, although there might still be oil in the ground, the better course is going to be the renewables, the solar and wind and others that don't include global warming, include carbon systems. So, okay, I think there is I think that's all the questions I can see here now, Senators. Last chance to put a question in the Q&A if you have any. And I didn't know if you had any last words you wanted to give us, or we're so thrilled that you're working on these climate bills. You know, we'd love to have them be bigger and broader and more, but we're glad you're working on them.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to walk through where we're going. I appreciate some of you are involved in other organizations that have come to testify or have come met with us to talk specifically about legislation or how to make this legislation better. You know, I often want people to take a look at what other states have done. You know, sometimes in a I don't know what the right word is, in a silo, people will be like, oh, this doesn't seem like it's headed in the right direction. But then when you look at, oh, you know, all the other states that are moving in the same direction are doing a similar thing, you know, I think people then begin to sort of understand sort of where sort of the industry is going and so forth. But, you know, we want to make sure that we can make this clean energy transition happen. We want to make sure that it's done in a way that is affordable. I do think in the long run, renewables will be the guiding force, but at the same point in time, we need a whole bunch of technology to change to make that more efficient, especially battery technology. And so, you know, right now and today, the technology is not there, but, you know, I do see that the technology is changing rapidly and that it's very possible that it will be there once we get into the 2030s and so forth. And so we're going to keep working towards that goal. So thank you for having me. And feel free to have people reach out to our office with other ideas and concepts as we continue down this path.
Thank you so much.